I really don't do enough Megatrons for random review because they tend to be big, bulky, cumbersome, and hard to actually frame on a random review format. But every now and then, they tend to make one a little bit smaller than standard, and that's very appreciated when I'm trying to do a quick little video for one. So we're going to take a look at one of the first shrunken down Megatron toys that we got. This is Energon Megatron, specifically the Ultra class that was sold as a 2-pack at Toys R Us. I'm going to call it Ultra class, even though I've known it as like a Voyager class Energon Megatron for as long as I have owned it, because it didn't seem quite Ultra sized. Needless to say, this is the Takara version of the Leader Megatron mold that we got here in the US. Smaller, but with pretty much everything intact, and for very good reasons why. As you can see, he is cast in an off-white plastic with some blue all the way through the back of the wings, and you'll see a lot more of that once we get into some of the other features, some on the underside as well. A little bit of gray plastic here and there as well, and plenty of paint, making all the details kind of mesh together. The vehicle is absolute lunacy. This was described consistently as a gunship, and you can kind of tell why. You have a gun on the tip of the wings, with maybe another gun just above it. Those are definitely more guns. Is that a gun or is that a rocket? I don't know. It looks like it could hurt. There's a massive cannon right over here, and then there's these little guns on the side of the cockpit. And then it's all the same on the other side. This is a ludicrous amount of weaponry for a single ship. So this is one of those, well, we can't make him a tank again, but we still want to make him big, powerful, and very weapon-ish because we still can't make him a gun anymore. So here is your end result, and I absolutely love this mode. It is a big, powerful thing. And this thing looks like it could be huge. I mean, take a look at the windshield in the cockpit. I mean, this thing looks like it should be absolutely enormous. You know, this could lay waste to small continents. It's awesome. I love this design. So beyond that, let's see what we got here. You can see a lot of translucent green as well as some metallic green to kind of match the detailing a little bit here and there. You get some yellow on some of the intakes on the front, as well as a little bit of dark blue around the big thruster engines and scattered about in a few other places. You see the spark crystal there on the side. I'll give you a closer look once we get to the actual robot mode. Decepticon emblem molded and painted on. Very nice. Big thrusters in the back. This is where a lot of the robot starts getting piled in. It is a Cybertronian vehicle mode, so of course they do take a lot of liberties with design as such. But hey, it still looks really, really freaking cool. It's getting heavy. You notice I'm changing arms a lot here. It's kind of hard to hold it up here. You see, on the underside, you also have 3 fully fleshed out landing gears with full rolling wheels and everything. This is before they started cheaping out on that kind of thing. Looking quite good all around. Now, this figure itself does have quite a bit more going on. You can see Minicon ports here on the ends of the wings, as well as 4 along the top. And that 4 is specifically for this unit. Now, this little black tank might look a little bit familiar, and that is because it is specifically designed to look like Armada Megatron's tank mode, as if this was some kind of cast off from when he was upgraded into his new body. You can still see the panels that would fold out from the original vehicle, the big side pieces of armor that were on the sides of the treads. A lot of the details still match up and are still there. And it has the added effect of these metallic teal spots of damage that have been painted in. It's fully molded, of course, and there's actually a few spots of damage they didn't paint in at all. But it does create this really cool illusion to this being just the leftovers of Armada Megatron. Very, very cool. Besides that, there is a little bit of translucent parts and plastic here, a little bit for the Decepticon emblem, and this piece, which will fold up into a like an actual reticle, though it's not terribly useful. Makes more sense in Megatron's robot mode. We'll get to that. A little pink on the back, and some kind of slot in the back. We'll get to that soon. But in the meantime, yeah, it has a missile to fire. This is one of the big differences from the actual leader class version, which has a machine gun sound effect. This one has more of a firing rocket noise, which is far more appropriate. So that's all well and good. Just standard kind of blue missile that you saw flying out briefly. Now, we're going to go into the hyper mode here, because Energon Decepticons all had a third mode that they could form into. So this mode is made by mounting the tank on top, then rotating the wings out like such. And raising this panel will not only extend these blue pieces, but also extend the green outward. You can raise them all the way up like this to present what seems to be another gun, but I don't like how it looks that way, so I tend to kind of X-wing it and make it parallel to the main bulk of the wing. I think it looks better that way, even if it's not completely out there. But that does slightly change the profile. As far as hyper modes go, there's much better. You know, this one's just kind of, it's a little bit of neat automorph and gearing effect, but beyond that, yeah, it's not as impressive. But, oh man, the big, as if he didn't need enough guns. Now there's a tank riding on top of the gunship. This has reached, like, absolute peak levels of just ridiculousness. I do like how it reveals those translucent wings. It looks like big Energon wings are starting to come out of him. So there is parts of this that I do like. Let me get this off. Go ahead and fold everything up, and we will start the conversion process to robot mode, which begins by popping the wings off, raising them up all the way like so, and then rotating them around. From there, flip to the underside where we can see most of the robots just kind of folded up there. I'm going to fold the landing gear into its proper position. You need to raise up these little thrusters to become the kneecaps before you lower the feet down. And one thing you're going to notice is a lot of things are spring-loaded on this toy. You'll note the fists kind of sprung out all on their own. When I lower down these pieces, the springs will automatically flip out the feet on the underside. Do it again, like so. You'll notice some more gearing effects as well. I'm going to lower this piece down to go to the back, and then if I pull one, the other arm comes out as well. With that, flip the head down, raise up the horns, and we'll get the wings back into a more comfortable position. And just like that, Megatron is in his full robot mode. Though at first glance, if you've never seen this toy before, you probably think to yourself, he doesn't look much like Megatron outside of that off-white color scheme. But trust me, this was a Megatron release, and I'll explain here after a bit. But I do love just how bulky and solid the transformation is. He feels nice to transform. Nothing overcomplicated, maybe a little on the simplistic side, but everything still comes together pretty much the way it really should. Taking a look at the head, yes, it is definitely very Galvatron. In Japan, this wasn't Megatron, this was Galvatron in the Super Link series. So that's where the design inspiration comes from. And it's a very nice homage to the big Galvatron from the original series. More so if you've got the US repaint of the leader class version, but that's a review for another time possibly. But I do really like it for that homage. You can see he has the same kind of abdomen section, the same kind of midsection. Even the button is molded in on the same. If you've ever seen the original Galvatron toy, he even has that little button that activated his electronics. Everything is kind of painstakingly done to match up the original details quite well, while still making sure he turns into something a little bit more playable than a tank. In this, or a tank, or a cannon, in Galvatron's case. In this mode, you can see the colors are very much brighter than the US's leader class Megatron. Is much more cartoon accurate. The colors are more bright and vibrant, whereas they went with more subdued and evil tones on the larger toy. Which I'm not quite sure why. It's just something they did. I don't explain it. I'm just happy they eventually gave us this little alternative. The toy itself, proportion-wise, looks absolutely great. He's bulky in the right spots. Everything seems to be where I would expect them to be for a big, powerful Decepticon leader. Everything looking quite good to me. So, I'm going to quickly go through articulation to get it out of the way. We can have the head, which has a full rotation around. That works out well. 2 points of articulation in each shoulder allow for universal motion. We have nothing in the bicep. Unfortunately, nothing in the wrist, nothing in the waist. We do have a universal joint with some nice solid ratcheting. Knees, which just barely make it to the 90. And because they are spring-loaded, not a whole lot you can do with the feet. This is the crux of Energon. This was before they really started focusing on articulation again. This was coming out of Armada, where pretty much everyone was a brick, and Energon was an improvement, but for the most part, articulation's still not a major concern of theirs. So you kind of have to give it a little bit of leeway. I still think it makes for a really nice toy. It's still really solid, even though it does not have a whole lot of function as an actual action figure. But we move on. I'll go ahead and show you what everything looks like in hyper mode and robot mode. No change to the effect because the wings are completely separate from the actual robot. This is where I think it makes a little bit more sense to raise them up completely, but it's to your preference. Position them however you like. It's your toy. Play. He looks nice enough, though, but it's not a big visual dynamic change. I've seen much better out of smaller Energon toys. But the big feature, of course, is going to go back to that tank again, because I'm going to wheel around here. And now we'll get to that actual socket that you saw in the back, which I'm going to lock into. Yeah, don't get ahead of me here. I can lock it into the back of his vehicle mode's cockpit section and unsheath a sword. The sword itself is locked in by that little button there. So you do have to kind of hook that in order to activate it. Stop that. With that, we will fold this out. Now this part, these clips are actually supposed to slide onto the front of the forearm, which makes sense. It seems like it wouldn't break so easily then, but I've never actually had success in getting it clipped on that way, so I kind of just have to go from the top, which feels a little bit weird, but hey, it tends to work. Which gives him this big forearm-mounted tank weapon with a sword on the end. It can be mounted the other way if you want the gun, but this fits a little bit more securely. And this is a little bit more to the intent of the toy. I can fold the wings back to give myself a little bit more room here, because as you noticed, it has another sound effect, and that's when the sword itself is hit. You get a sword slashing noise, and if you've noticed, it also lights up a red LED inside. This feels like one of those LEDs that's supposed to illuminate the whole blade, but as you can see, yeah, that works about as well as every other time they've tried it. A red LED is just not going to shine through green plastic like that. It's not going to create the effect they were going for. And in general, they keep trying that gimmick. They tried it a lot back then, if I recall right. I don't recall it ever working out too well. The LEDs for US toys, just not powerful enough to get that light piped all the way through. But I don't think it detracts from him too much. I think the sword sound effect is a much more interesting and at least effective gimmick as an action figure. So that, my friends, is the smaller version of Energon Megatron. He is quite the sight to behold. I still really, really dig this toy and everything that he's got going on. He's a simple transformation, simple in articulation, but he's rock solid. Has a really cool look and feel to him all the way around. He just feels like a good toy, and that's something that's hard to explain in video media. One thing about him, this is pretty much identical form-wise to the leader class, because the leader class is just this toy upscaled. And if you have the Galvatron version of the leader class, even better, because that toy has one of the best color schemes I've ever seen on any Transformer. So, in general, it's hard to go wrong on any version of this figure. I'm more than happy with it, though ironically this smaller size probably more expensive to dig up than even the leader class version. Thank you, Toys R Us exclusivity. But if you can dig it up and it's within your price range, I think you'd be happy with it, especially if you are in need of a cartoon accurate version of Megatron slash Superlink Galvatron. Because, man, I don't know why color schemes got goofy back then.